iRacing, you wanted the best, you got them four abreast. Often imitated, never duplicated. The greatest show on dirt, the World of Outlaws.
Welcome to V8 Online's coverage of the Monday night V8 Supercar Strength of Field Championship. Tonight, we are broadcasting from the ludicrously large concrete bumps of the Sebring International Raceway, and to bring you the coverage, we have Jay Kennedy in the director's booth and Mr. Zachary Hanlon alongside me in the comms booth. And Zach, qualifying's underway right now. What will be the state of play here tonight?
Well, it's one of those tracks where flow is everything, and if you're not in the flow, you're not going to go. And guys are really going to have to, and girls are going to really have to concentrate on putting the best qualifying lap together, because it is relatively difficult to pass around here, but you can run too wide. A lot of other tracks you wouldn't be able to run too wide through a lot of the sections. You can through here, but being able to put down the perfect lap here is very difficult, and so hitting all your markers and hitting all your apexes is really going to be the key to keeping a consistent race tonight, which is what you're going to need.
Yep, and there's a lot of places that can all go wrong here. Of course, this track is so bumpy, so if you miss an apex just a little bit, you can find yourself in a whole heap of new bumps that you've never explored before. That can be a pretty rough ride around this circuit, which lines up at a pretty long, almost 6 kilometers and 17 turns. So it's going to be very, very tough for the drivers to hook up a lap around this circuit. But that's exactly what the drivers are trying to do right now. Still waiting for our first driver to cross the line and get their first representative time down. But at the moment, Michael Taliantic is one of those drivers on the lap heading towards the final corner now. And he's one of the drivers that will be looking for a good result here after a bit of a rough few weeks. Normally a driver we expect to be towards the front of these races, but just had a bit of a slump in the last few weeks, so really looking to fight back. And this should be a circuit he performs really, really well at as he goes through the awfully bumpy final turn 17 on the power, fighting to get the power down as soon as you can. Marlon McMullen sets down the marker of a 201.9, and that's a very, very nice lap from McMullen. And Taliantic slots into P number 3 just behind Jordan Ross, who continues his upward rise in form. And Zach, there's a lot of drivers we don't often see in this series, as well as a few familiar faces. How do you think the drivers will stack up tonight?
Well, yeah, I mean, obviously, with what I was saying before about this track being so difficult, people who have a lot of experience on this track might be just jumping in to have a bit of fun, and so we may see some surprises. Cars with lower car numbers we would possibly expect to be up towards the front of the grid. You can already see Jordan Ross and Sam Blacklock up in cars 21 and 23. They're in positions 4 and 5 at the moment, so possibly a little bit of track experience helping those guys. But yeah, I think with the difficulty of this track, it doesn't matter if you're experienced in this V8 or not as experienced. It's going to be very difficult either way, and I'm sure we'll be seeing some really good battle packs all throughout the field tonight. We do have a big field tonight as well. I think we've got 31 cars on this grid tonight, which is the biggest grid that we've seen in a Monday night official so far, so it's going to be good fun.
Yeah, lots of cars trying to fit around this circuit, and it's 28 degrees track temp here today, so it's quite cool conditions for an afternoon track. So the drivers, well, some drivers will be happy with that, some not so much, so they're going to be chasing the setup a little bit in this one, especially because afternoon with iRacing tends to be quite hot. But now they've got 28 degrees, so it's going to be a lot faster for these guys. Currently on top is number 6 car of Ryan O'Sullivan, who's currently on his second lap, trying to improve that marker, and he will need to improve that marker because he's not comfortable right now, as he's only got about half a tenth in the way of Marlon McMullen, who's actually just coming across the start-finish line right now. A 2:01.89 to beat, and it's going to be a 2:02.0 for McMullen, so he's not going to be starting any higher than the front row of the grid. So McMullen will be starting from second at best. Sullivan comes into the final corner now. He's looking to try and consolidate that pole position and just find a little bit more margin to help himself be protected and get the best possible run into turn 1 when the lights go green. And judging by that line, he's not too confident in that time, and he should not be confident at all. A 2:02.8, so that's not good enough for O'Sullivan.
Yeah, but he is keeping it in pole at the moment. We just have Brenton Hobson, who's about to finish his lap, coming down the final straight into Sunset Bend, the final corner, and one of the bumpiest corners that you'll see at any track ever. Running very close to the inside wall there. That is a nice line. He's going to get a nice exit coming out. Keeps it nice and straight towards the checkered flag, and he does a 2:03.1. So seems like the first lap for everybody's kind of been the one to beat. And just have a look and see if many more cars. We've got Keith Wheeler still on a lap, Zach Baker on a lap as well. Zach's had some decent pace throughout his career in V8, so he might be looking. I don't think he's put a time in yet, so we'll definitely be seeing him fly up the order as he's coming into Sunset Bend. And we've got Mario Vlasic is actually on, I think he might be on his third lap. So Zach Baker will come around Sunset Bend and running a little wider on the exit there, but still there are many ways through that corner which are fast.
That might not count, and it hasn't.
It hasn't. Wow, that's unfortunate. So he missed out by the skin of his teeth on that one.
Wow, that's a disaster for Zach Baker, but nonetheless, he'll be starting from position 30, but a driver that won't be starting from position 30 is Ryan O'Sullivan, who'll be kicking things off from pole position with a very nice time just ahead of Marlon McMullen, who lines up on the front row of the grid. Luke Harvey, Wayne Berg, and John Ross round out the top 5, with Sam Blacklock and his teammate Kurt Stenberg rounding out the top 7. Michael Talianasic, Thomas Hins, and Brenton Hobson, who is streaming on Twitch for the first time tonight, round out the top 10.
We've got Brian Borg in 11th place with Thomas McMillan taking out position number 12. Corey Preston will start from 13th position, followed by Cooper Webster in 14th. Jamie McKnight will start alongside Leon Tander on the 8th row of the grid, and they've got Braden Bateman and Emily Jones sitting behind them. Jason Benson, Craig Jones will round out the top 20 with Steve Jansen, Brett Loxton, Christian Hinton, and Mario Vlasic, and Greg Sharp rounding out the top 25. And the final of our drivers are Wayne Taylor, Abarafti Putra, David Kinmond, Will Dodd, Zach Baker, and Keith Wheeler. The both last two failed to set a qualifying time, so it'll be interesting to see if they will move through the field at all. But looks like we're going to have a good race on our hands here tonight, Bo. I'm very excited.
Yeah, I think this is going to be a very, very good race, and the drivers are going to be finding their way around the Sebring International Circuit 19 times tonight, but they're not going to be doing it across the start-finish line 19 times. They will be making one trip past the start-finish line through the pit lane as well. So strategy will be an element for these drivers to watch out for, as now the drivers just getting themselves onto the grid and awaiting the green flag once everyone is on. And how good does 31 V8 Supercars look on this start-finish line? It is an awesome sight, and it's about to get a whole lot better because they're going to be making that long, fast run into the very quick turn number 1, and we could see a lot of drama when the lights go out in any second. The revs will be rising on 31 V8 Supercars, and it's lights out, and away we go, and it's a fantastic start from Ryan O'Sullivan and Marlon McMullen. Very, very even. They're going to fight their way into turn number 1, and it's going to get very, very dicey. McMullen dives to the inside. Let's see if they all make it through. McMullen's very sideways, but he looks to be getting it all together side by side from a lot of cars in the background, even 3 wide in places as they funnel their way into the very tough turn number 2. Slow it down from high speed all the way to very, very low speed. Cars diving onto the grass in places to try and give other cars room, filing their way through. No contact or spinners just yet, I do believe, as they now funnel their way into the hairpin. Lots of door banging, but no one has really been turned around, so I think we might have a clean start here, Zach. Yeah, pretty clean start. Just noticed a tiny bit of contact between Mario Vlasic and Emily Jones, but no harm, no foul. They've come out the other side of that without any issues. But down into this hairpin here, this is where it starts to get a little dicey, and we do have a car off the track. That's Abarafti Putra, who's just had to settle at the back of the pack there, just having a bit of a half spin. And a couple of cars still fanning out in the mid-pack, going 2 wide here into, I believe that's turn number 10. And coming through this complex here, it is very hard to go 2 wide. Emily Jones going around the outside of Corey Preston there, making up another position. But yeah, good clean start from everyone here. Nice to see not too much contact between everyone. And a couple of moves just still being made in the midfield there. But looks like everyone's just going to fold back in single file. Actually, Emily Jones is just going to go up the inside of Jason Bentz through the Le Mans curves here. And that's a nice move. She's already ahead before she gets... Oh, she's been turned around. Actually, oh, that's a shame. She's going to have to watch out. And she's just going to hold herself there, get herself turned around. That was Corey Preston. Hard into the wall. A lot of drivers caught up in that, and we'll get a CPR kart racing replay up on screen for you but it was getting very, very dicey with Emily Jones fighting for position there. And it's not over yet as the drivers head into turn number 17. Whilst you watch the replay, it's still very, very scrappy with a lot of drivers just trying to get one position over the other. But looks like it is just beginning to settle down as Vlasic is going side by side into turn 1 with Zach Baker, who has had a fantastic start, up 10 spots. Big dive bomb at the back there from the driver of Jamie McKnight, who slots himself up a couple of positions. And they're still going side by side in the back. So that incident there for Emily Jones has really caused an accordion effect through the field, and everyone's trying to take advantage of it. But your highest mover is Zach Baker, 10 spots up the grid, and Corey Preston finds himself as the worst off, getting involved in yet another incident for him, unfortunately, down 15 spots, and Emily Jones finds herself down 12.
Yeah, well, Corey was actually making a move. He was trying to follow Emily through on Jason Bentz and just took it a little too deep into the apex of turn 16 there, and subsequently came together with Emily. And yeah, we did have a bit of a kerfuffle after that. But yeah, Zach Baker doing a fantastic job, up 10 positions already, which is an excellent job, even if you are starting from the back of the grid. And he's just getting a bit tough with Mario Vlasic or Greg Sharp. Oh, no, that is Zach Baker actually just rubbing doors with Mario Vlasic there. Vlasic's going to keep that spot, and just up ahead of them we've got Brett Loxton and Craig Jones going side by side. Brett's going to be the winner out of that one, and that's actually going to give a run to Greg Sharp as well, who's going to go around the outside of Brett Loxton. And Mario Vlasic also looking to have a move on Craig Jones as well, as he just bumps the rear of Craig there, and then Zach Baker gets into the back of him, so they're getting into each other a little bit, and Zach's going to, I think, just have the advantage at the exit of turn 16 there. So he manages to pull through there, but little bit of bumping, a little bit of frustration, a little bit of I want to get a move on, and we'll just head towards now, as these guys are still battling towards the lead. Marlon McMullen is now pulled right up behind Ryan O'Sullivan, and Ryan's not looking particularly happy through turn 1 there, just running a little wide and missing the apex there. I think a little bit of insider information is that Ryan's not done a whole lot of setup work for this week, so he may start to struggle as this race goes on. But Marlon definitely not far behind in chase.
No, not at all. McMullen is really starting to put the pressure on, and you could see into turn 1 he had so much more confidence just throwing the car into the high-speed stuff, and he was so much better. As we've actually just had another incident, I think, in the background somewhere. So we'll try and get a replay up on screen, but it was Zach Baker after what was such a promising start for him. He was up so many positions, and that was actually a big moment, going almost 3 wide with Jamie Knight. And I'm just trying to figure out who that driver was. I think it was David Kinman.
David Kinman, yeah.
Very, very opportunistic. That was never going to work.
Ambitious, yes.
And unfortunately, it's just ruined Zach Baker's race completely. That car was hard into the tyre wall. David Kinman, not the best move, and that's one you'll have to reflect on later tonight. Yeah,
well, I think David Kinman's been doing a bit of training with the TTL Esports Academy, so maybe he can take a little bit of what he learned tonight and put it into practice in other areas. But you know, you got to come out here and race with the big boys to learn how it's done, and every now and then you make a mistake, so he'll look back. But Marlon McMullen now right on the back of Ryan O'Sullivan, and he's going to take a move to the inside at Sunset Bend, and Ryan O'Sullivan running very wide there, but he's going to try and cut back and get a nice exit out of Sunset Boulevard Bend here. And that's one of the advantages of that corner, is that there are so many lines to take. If you get attacked early on, you can retaliate by taking a wider line, but unfortunately just hasn't been enough momentum carried through the exit of that corner for Ryan O'Sullivan to retaliate. So Marlon McMullen now takes the lead in this race.
Two TTR teammates into turn number 1 were pulling punches against one another. Sam Blacklock just attacking his teammate Luke Harvey, and those two got very, very close on the exit there. But in the end, a very nice move from Sam Blacklock on his teammate. And those two know each other's driving styles around here very, very well, coming off the back of a win in an endurance race and other series on the weekend. So these two know the circuit very well. They know their cars well, And Sam Blacklock almost had it under control, but he's now well and truly out of control. Sideways into the hairpin, and all that work he did to get past Luke Harvey is gone. And Wayne Burke has a very, very nice run now out of the hairpin, and is going to think about a move on Sam Blacklock here. Sam not really defending, but doesn't need to. Wayne Burke just going to sit behind for now. And,
Yeah.
oh no, Jordan Ross!
Yeah, I'll just have a look at what's happened to Jordan Ross there. Just heard that he's gone off the track, and we'll just pick up with him now.
Yeah, so he was closing very nicely on McMullen and O'Sullivan, but just pushed a little bit too hard, locked the rears under braking, or maybe just didn't quite get the throttle blip quite right, and it snaps the rear around, and actually didn't lose too much time overall in the main thing, but more crucially, he did lose that spot to Luke Harvey, so that's a big shame for Jordan Ross, because he did look very, very speedy compared to McMullen and O'Sullivan, so he really could have made that a 3-horse race. So if he can get past Luke Harvey, maybe there's still a chance for him, and he knows that he has to get past soon. Almost has a nose on the inside of Luke Harvey, but Harvey shuts the door. He's a wily old fox. He knows how to race these cars, and no way through just yet. Yeah,
well, I think almost had a nose in there is pretty accurate. That wasn't really going to work for him if he did try and slide it up in there, but yeah, just ran too deep, made a mistake, and that's unfortunately something that's very easy to do here at Sebring. There are so many corners and so many things to learn. It's very easy for it all to come unraveling with just one depression of the brake. But Jordan Ross has been carrying some good speed, and I believe, as we were talking about last week, he's one of those drivers who's really started to push from a lower mid-pack driver up towards the front. And Luke Harvey is a race winner in this series already at Le Mans, so he's up there fighting with the guys who can win races. So maybe towards the end of this season, we can see him making...
Oh, Thomas Haynes has been turned around! He was up the inside of the 15 car of Brian Borg, and the two have come together on the exit. Brian Borg lit the rear tyres up a little bit, probably unintentionally. That pushed him to the right, and he's tagged Thomas Haynes. Around Hinsey goes, and down a whole bunch of spots. So that's a nightmare for Hinsey, who was doing really, really well, and he now finds himself 9 places down from his grid slot, finds himself in 18th place behind Greg Sharp. Yeah, that's really disappointing. Thomas was doing a really nice job there, and he's been putting in consistent performances mostly throughout this season, so he'll have to work himself back. But yeah, Jordan Ross as well, gonna have to, he's looking a bit, yeah, and Blacklock's actually struggling a little bit with Wayne Burke behind him here, and Wayne's been looking pretty racy, and he's been fighting with these TCR guys quite a lot this season, and I imagine that he'll be possibly looking to do something like he did last week at Watkins Glen with a bit of an undercut and try and get on some fresh tyres as soon as he can and try and gap these guys. But until that pit window opens up, he's going to have to do as much as he can to get past these guys, and it's not going to be easy, especially when you've got Jordan Ross in the mix of this TTR sandwich as well. But one small mistake from any of these guys, and I don't think Wayne Burke's going to hold up on trying to poke himself through. No, not at all, but look at Jordan Ross. He's getting very feisty behind the driver of Luke Harvey, and I think that's with good reason too, because Luke Harvey really struggling for pace, surprisingly, in these early phases of the race. Last time around, race leader Mark McMullen on a 2.9, and Harvey could only manage a 3.7, so a big time swing in the advantage from McMullen and of Luke Harvey. And Ross looked much quicker, and he's still thinking about a move up the inside. Can't quite commit. Yeah, no, he's probably put himself out a little wider than he really needed to. You can see they're struggling for traction out that far, and he just gives Harvey a little bit of breathing room now. But I think Jordan Ross has really, really nice pace in that car, and he just has to play his cards right, because he doesn't want to get too punched against Harvey and open the door for Blacklock to get past. Because if Blacklock gets past, with these trains, how they often work at Sebring, if Blacklock gets past, chances are Burke and Taliantic are going to get through as well. So Jordan Ross just has to, you know, play it patient here. Of course, that mistake early in the race might have cost him any chance of a race win today, but he definitely, I think, has the potential to still get position number 3. So just be careful, don't make any major mistakes, and just, you know, pick and choose your moments on Harvey. Yeah, and that aggression is not going to be helping
the whole train's cause in trying to catch back up to those
sorry,
leaders.
cut
And
across you again.
Burke! Oh, Burke tried to go down the inside as Blacklock just ran slightly wide there, yeah. And they came together and Burke's lost out big time. We said, make a mistake and Burke won't hesitate to go through. And Blacklock did, Burke didn't, but Burke lost out big time on that. So that's very unfortunate. And Burke now also carrying a little bit of damage on the left-hand side of that car as well, which could hinder his progress forward. But yeah, these guys seem to be racing pretty hard. We have seen, going back to Luke Harvey, Bo, Luke Harvey has been pretty, I guess, slowish in the opening portions of these races, but seems to be able to pick it up towards the later parts of the stints and hold on to the tyres a little better than everyone else. So maybe he's just playing a longer game at the moment and just trying to keep it consistent, hope that the leaders will drop off the pace a little bit and he can start to claw his way back.
Yeah, that is definitely an option, so we'll have to wait and see what Luke Harvey has, but I just want to bring your attention to an incident we had involving Cooper Webster and Thomas McMillan just on that previous lap number 6, just before it all went off with Burke. Webster and McMillan were going side by side through the double apex left-hander, and McMillan just made a little bit of contact with the driver of Cooper Webster, and it seems to have, you know, just pushed Webster out a little bit sideways and a bit wide, but he never really regained steering after that, and he just plowed into the wall at really high speed and lost a bunch of spots, and of course big damage to the car as well. It just seemed like he couldn't quite regain the steering lock after the incident and just went straight into the wall. So that's a big shame for Cooper Webster, who now finds himself back into the pits, but nonetheless it will be interesting to see if he can get out and maybe get a few more points on the board. But back to your point on Luke Harvey, that is definitely a case that he does seem to get stronger as the race goes on and just potentially conserving tyres a little bit, which could be an issue because Ryan O'Sullivan, who was pushing very hard in the opening phase of the race, you know, his pace is dropping quite significantly, whereas Luke Harvey's still, you know, matching within a tenth of what he was doing previously. So Harvey's tyres are holding up a bit better, but is his pace holding up well compared to Jordan Ross, who looks up the inside once more, and there's no room there. Luke Harvey, get your drift skills out, and he's gonna just pull it up. Jordan Ross is gonna, you know, just sit back and say, okay, I'm sorry about that. Please go back through. But exactly, that's the issue. Blacklock now has a big run, so Ross tries to get in the slipstream of Harvey to make sure he can at least hold the position on Blacklock. Blacklock looking around the outside, not going to find any way there, so Ross might have just got away, but no, that's a very slow exit. So that's going to be defensive time for Jordan Ross. Does Blacklock think about it up the inside? No, he doesn't. Ross does, almost into the back of Luke Harvey. Luke Harvey almost gets pit maneuvered there, so very, very lucky for him. Jordan Ross just needs to find his feet again. He's making a few little mistakes. And, you know, that move into turn 17, once again, probably wasn't quite on. He didn't have enough of an overlap, but he's still trying desperately to get this move done. But you saw there, he tried to move a bit too aggressive, and all of a sudden the door opens for Blacklock, who was looking very, very racy, as Stenberg in the background just about holds on to it, loses a bunch of time, but that was initial deja vu into the braking zone.
Yeah, I saw actually Thomas McMillan, while you were discussing that incident he had with Cooper Webster, did something similar as well. So a couple of drivers having issues coming out of the hairpin there. But yeah, Sam Blacklock had a nice run coming out of turn 1. A bit of a shame he wasn't able to execute anything on that. But Jordan Ross is looking very racy, and I think this is hurting the train overall. I think these guys, if they keep going at this rate, they're all going to just have to accept that third is what they're fighting for, and nothing better is going to come of that without a mistake of anybody else. But yeah, Jordan Ross is really, really making a push to get past Luke Harvey, and it seems like he's sticking to his strategy A, which is got to go fast and just like get out of here as soon as I can. But these guys are racing within pretty tight margins here, and they're getting very close to the bumpers of each other every time they're coming in. And Jordan Ross has looked very good in this part of the track in particular as well. Just running a little wider line, and Luke Harvey's pulling into the pits as well as Sam Blacklock. So strategy starts now. Wayne Burke firing into the pits as well as Stenberg, Hobson as well. Bentz and Borg are all going to join those guys on the pit lane. So got our first little bit of strategy, and we'll see how these guys can utilize new tires to hopefully gap the guys at the front. Now, what'll be interesting here is if Jordan Ross still thinks that he has the pace to stay out an extra lap or two and try and get that overlap on the guys behind him.
Yeah, I think this strategy for those guys is 100% based on the undercut, because we've seen a lot of drivers really struggling as the tyres go on later in the stint and the pace is really beginning to drop off. So I think this is entirely on the undercut for those guys, trying to maximize their advantage that way. But just interesting, like Blackhawks actually came out of the pits in front of Harvey, who's actually going to have a lot of trouble with Aberfati Putra. So they're going to go side by side potentially, but Putra just leaves it and lets Harvey go through. But a very nice pit stop from Sam Blacklock, a 1.3 seconds quicker in the pit stop alone, but actually only a second quicker in the pit lane delta time, as I think that's Emily Jones off.
Yeah, Emily Jones has had a bit of a shocker, hasn't she? And she looks like she's pulled it into the pit lane and called it a day. But yeah, with that slower pit stop, the teammates! Oh no! Oh no! Oh my goodness, they were so lucky not to come together again. And Wayne Burke's going to capitalize on this. Yep, Wayne Burke's going to capitalize on this as well. He's got a good run up into turn number 10 here. And if he can brake late enough and go boldly around the outside, he'll have the inside line into the following corner. But Luke Harvey manages to keep it all together there. And yeah, oh my goodness.
Oh, in the background's like Zach Baker off as well. So what has happened? Why is lap 9 doing this to us? What has happened to the field? At turn number 3, Emily Jones around. Turn number 4, Luke Harvey says hello to Sam Blacklock. And now the driver of Zach Best is off the road as well. So Zach Baker now trying to attack the driver of Jason Bentz, but a lot of mistakes from him tonight, which is a shame after the start he had. But lap 9 has kicked off in all kinds of ways, and it's not over yet, as a lot of drivers now diving for the pit lane, including McMullen, O'Sullivan, Ross, and Braden Bateman as well, and a lot more. So a lot of drivers choosing now to dive into the pit lane. And
Jordan,
to see
this is going to help Jordan Ross really, really well. Because those TTR guys were fighting each other. They've nearly spun, both of them. And I think Jordan Ross, if he can get a pretty quick stop off here, he's going to come out ahead of those guys, and he's going to be the big winner out of all this. Our leaders have come out in an expected position. Yeah, it is a slow stop, and he's not going to have the momentum. Those guys are going to come through. So Jordan Ross missing out big time on a opportunity to capitalize on TTR kind of collapsing over themselves there. And just as that was happening, Bo, just as Luke went into the back of Sam Blacklock there, I was about to say, is Sam going to have to fuel save to try and make up for that? Obviously, he's taken less fuel, and maybe he was just coasting a little bit into the hairpin there and caught Luke Harvey unawares, and that's why they came together.
Yeah, you would have to think so, because Sam Blacklock easily has the quickest pit stop in the entire field right now. 16.7 seconds, 3.5 quicker than Jordan Ross's pit stop. So that's interesting, because of course with Blacklock pitting a lap earlier than Jordan Ross, you'd expect him to take more fuel. He's taken 3.5 seconds less fuel. So expect Jordan Ross to be very competitive. No fuel saving at all from him, I would suspect, and slightly fresher tyres with a large drop-off around Sebring. But Blacklock is really going to have the question mark on him. But another question mark we have here, Zach, is McMullen is slowly being caught by ERT driver Ryan O'Sullivan once again.
Yeah, he is. And
he was.
He was until, yeah, Ryan just understeered into eternity there. But, yeah, we saw Ryan doing pretty well in the first few opening laps of that last stint. And there's a bit of contact back further in the field as well. We'll just get that for you now. Burke and Harvey just coming together a little bit there as well. Through the final part of the Le Mans bend there, and yeah, just getting a bit of a hip and shoulder there, Luke Harvey. Yeah, he probably, I mean, yeah, it's probably a bit of a racing incident. The V8s, you can kind of bang doors a little bit and it's not too bad. I think that one's kind of a bit on the fence as to either driver being at fault there. It's probably just a bit of racing, but very exciting for us, so not going to complain. But yeah, Ryan, with the exception of that moment that he had before, in the first part of that last stint, he was very quick. So if he can maintain that and hopefully keep a little bit of the pace through this second stint, now that he understands more how the car's going to react through the rest of the stint for him.
One thing I'm very confused at right now is Michael Taliancic, our race leader, is still yet to pit, and he's running so much slower lap times. I don't know why he hasn't come into the pits yet, because he's gone so long in this first stint. He's now working his 11th lap. He's not going to have enough time in the end of the race to, you know, on fresher tyres to make up all this time again, surely.
Well, he does have a really big gap, and he's running pretty much 2 seconds a lap slower than everybody else. So maybe he's probably not looking to fight for the lead. Maybe he's looking to consolidate somewhere around 5th or 6th. He was kind of on the back of that TTR train, and he's had a lot of fresh air. I think he'll probably have to come in this time around, and he does. So we'll find out very shortly where he's looking to fight. But, you know, the cars that only ran a lap longer, they don't have so much of a tyre advantage over their competitors. Michael stopped 3 laps later than pretty much everybody else, and that's going to give him a significant tyre advantage. And he also might get away with having a pretty slow stop quick stop rather, if he has been fuel saving throughout this entire stint. So he should be coming off the jacks in about 5 seconds if he's got a quick stop going. And yeah, that is a pretty quick stop. It's about as quick as we saw from Sam Blacklock. And he'll just come out the back of this train here. And so he now has a tyre advantage over all these guys, including Jordan Ross, Luke Harvey, and Wayne Burke. And that's going to be interesting, and he shouldn't need to fuel save now. I would presume that the second part of his stint, he had planned that he would be going full stick. So he's now got a good opportunity here, and Wayne Burke and Luke Harvey are still battling at it pretty hard. Luke probably a little fired up from that little bump that he got, and he's caught right back up here in the slipstream, pulls out to the inside. He's going to go late on the brakes and takes the inside very nicely. Wayne running very, very wide there, and that's going to give Jordan Russ a good run down into turn 10 as well. He's got the inside line, and he's got enough overlap to make it work as well. So Wayne Burke, by running too wide into that hairpin there, is going to lose 2 positions, and Michael Taliancic is going to be able to edge ever closer as well to these guys. And the more that these guys fight, the more tyres they'll use up. More advantage, Michael Taliancic.
Yeah, exactly. He's got a very nice tyre advantage over these guys, and he'll be looking very, very quick in the dying few laps. I'm surprised how he came out back into this field after the pit stop. I really thought it was going to be no man's land, but he's got a really good opportunity to fight now, and it's going to be one to watch as we close in on just 7 laps to go. Gap at the front is 2.8 seconds, and then a big margin back to Sam Blacklock in third, who is just ahead of this big battle for P number 6, but we'll actually go down to a battle at the moment to Mario Vlasic, Greg Sharp, and a whole bunch of others, including
Steve
Steve
this is
Jansen.
spicy.
He is getting past the driver now of Greg Sharp around the outside, and he's not going to be the only one, as now Brian Bork thinks about it. He's going to dive it to the inside. A very late move, pulls out of it at the last second. But this is looking like a very nice battle indeed. And Brian Borg, he's going to send it up the inside and almost gets it done on Greg Sharp, but doesn't quite do it. But he's actually got a very decent run now out of this corner. So we'll see what he can do into turn number 17. But very nice straight line speed on that driver of Greg Sharp's car. So we'll see how we go into turn number 17. But that battle was getting very, very intense for a second there, Zach.
Yeah, and they all had to kind of... Oh, we're just going up the front.
Around.
Yeah, Jordan Ross has gone around, and he's had contact with...
It might not be over yet with Taliancic. He almost got into the side there of Wayne Burke, but contact and drama for these guys. And if Taliancic will try and stick with this battle with you for you right now, as Taliancic thinks about it around the outside, Ross up the inside of Harvey as well. Side-by-side duos into here, contact with Ross and Harvey. Taliancic can't do it around the outside. So it's about status quo as it was after that incident at turn number 2. So we'll get a replay up on screen for you now whilst we have a bit of a break in these guys absolutely destroying each other's tyres and cars and body panels. And Jordan Ross there, very opportunistic and probably a missed brake marker as well. That was a little bit weird, Zach.
Yeah, I think he just... Yeah, he pulled out pretty late. I mean, it's hard to say whether he realised that he missed his brake marker or whether he was really just going to go straight for an overtake no matter what. He did clip the curb on the inside there, which kind of rocketed him into Luke. And yeah, I reckon he probably should have braked a little earlier there. But, you know, as we've said, you've got to try sometimes and you've got to learn from your mistakes. And, I mean, probably Jordan could give that spot back to Luke. If Luke's able to catch up again, you might want to just give it back. Michael Talyancic up ahead of them now, looking to the inside of Wayne Burke. And that is job done for Michael Talyancic. He's got a nice line through the sunset bend there, and he's going to get a better exit than Wayne coming out of there, I'd imagine, with those fresher tyres. So Michael Talyancic pulling off a fantastic strategy call there, doing a bit of fuel saving, but Wayne Burke's going to try and dive it to the inside. Michael's going to cut him off and say, no, mate, I've got the fresh tyres. You are not getting past me. I'm just going to sail away now. So Michael should now, with that tyre advantage and being the only car in this train with all the panels still on it, I would imagine that he's going to be able to drive away from these guys very nicely in the next lap or so.
Yeah, and I'm interested to see what his pace is relative to Sam Blacklock, of course. That last lap, he did lose a bit of time to Blacklock, but of course he had all kinds of chaos happening around him. Now that he's got fresh air and he's not under too much pressure, I would imagine he should be able to break away from the drivers behind. Let's see if he can close in on Sam Blacklock. Only a 5-second margin, but he has 3-lap newer tyres, and we do know that the tyre drop-off around here can be pretty severe. So Talyancic is definitely a driver to watch right now, but I don't think Burke is listening to anything I'm saying, and he's definitely trying to get that position back on Talyancic as he slides his way through that fast left-hander, hard onto the brakes now into an ever-tightening right-hander, bumps on the inside, bumps on the exit, and he's doing the best he can. Jordan Ross sticking just behind P number 6, and he's beginning to lose touch, and I wonder if Luke Harvey potentially has some steering damage on that number 3 car.
Yeah, well, with the amount of hits that he's copped from all the cars around him, I wouldn't be surprised if he had some form of ailment on that car, and he doesn't look like he's really able to keep up with that pack at the moment. He's starting to fall off the back of these guys, but Jordan Ross is not quite there either, as Wayne Burke's now looking to send it back up the inside of Michael Talyancic and just doesn't quite have the overlap there to have a bit of a go. He doesn't have the same eagerness that Jordan Ross did in earlier laps, and he'll have to follow around Michael Talyancic at least until the beginning of turn 1. Michael going very defensive into the entry here, and I think that's going to give Wayne a very nice exit out of turn 1, and he's going to have the inside line to turn 2 here. So that's a nice move by Wayne Burke. They're going to give each other plenty of room, but again, Wayne has the preferred line into this corner here, and this corner is very difficult to go through too wide. They're going to do it though. Good amount of respect between these guys here, and they're going to have a drag race down into the hairpin. Michael has less ground to cover, and he's also got the preferred line, and now Jordan Ross is going to have a bit of a look if he can manage to pull it up behind these guys, but he's just going to keep out of it, and they're all going to stay line astern for the time being. But you can see the way that you can take different lines around this circuit, and they pay off in different areas, and that's why it's this track's kind of like a game of chess, almost like Le Mans. But rather than having the straights to draft at Le Mans here, you've got all the bumps and the ways that the corners can carry you in different ways and take you fast in the beginning or fast at the end. You can take your pick and work it to your advantage. But these guys all just staying line astern for the moment.
I'm not too sure that we this was a particularly smart move for Wayne Burke, because in that last lap, Michael Talyancic was 1.2 seconds quicker than Sam Blacklock. He would have caught him by the end of the race, but with all this battling, that's never going to happen. And I know Wayne Burke has a lot of speed in that car of his, but I just think with the advantage Talyancic has on fresh tyres right now, it'd be better for him just to sit behind and not use too much of his own tyres, and maybe do a last gasp move on the last lap or something, but just try and potentially, follow Talyancic all the way to Blacklock. But with that fight they had in turn number 1, and he's still looking very racy, I think he might have another go on this lap potentially if he gets close enough. But I think this is just allowing Blacklock to run away just a little bit with that lap. In fact, Blacklock on that last lap, a tenth of a second quicker. So didn't gain at all. They lost a little bit of ground. So for Wayne Burke, if he wants to potentially steal a podium, following Talyancic all the way to Blacklock and then trying to make a last lap move might be the only option for him.
Yeah, I mean, it's much easier for us to say that being the ones that are watching the race. I know I've probably been in a similar position, and I've been saying to myself, no, just keep it cool, just stay behind, just carry it, you know, just follow this guy up to the next guy and then we'll get them both. And then the guy in front of you makes a mistake and you're like, you know, oh, we could just do this now. So, yeah, I think Wayne's probably just on the ladder and he locks the rears coming into the hairpin and gets very sideways. He was lucky to keep that together. And that's going to give Jordan Ross a nice toe, and Jordan's going to fire it and go to the outside line and maybe then duck back on the inside line. And they're going to go in late on the brakes. Jordan's got the inside line, and again, Wayne giving plenty of room to that inside line. And Jordan Ross takes P number 5 away from Wayne there. And as we've seen from Wayne all throughout this race, I suspect that he'll be fighting that back fairly quickly. But now he's got the added pressure of Luke Harvey behind him. And Kurt Stenberg, who's been slowly plugging away at this train as well, he might have something to say before this race is done.
Yeah, absolutely. He's got very good pace at the moment. And he's closing on these guys who are fighting each other by about half a second a lap. So that's really, really hurting them. So more drivers are very slowly catching onto this train. And it's just going to make things even more intense as we head to just 3 laps to go. And it does look all good at the moment from Marlon McMullen with a 4.6 second lead of Ryan O'Sullivan, who has a big margin back to Sam Blacklock, who is almost out of trouble from Michael Talyancic. Jordan Ross, on the other hand, look behind him. He has a whole heap of trouble coming his way, and with 3 laps to go, he's going to have to get the elbows out, and he's going to have to get very, very defensive, because Wayne Burke in that Synergy Sim Racing car has a lot of pace. And I think he's going to be fighting this one all the way to the end as we head through the very fast turn number 1, which is a very good section for Jordan Ross, but Wayne Burke looks very strong in these slower speed stuff. As we now hook into the fast left, launch it over the curb on the right. Wayne Burke not using too much of that, but now into another left, which is all about traction. And if you're close enough, if you've got good enough traction, you can get a pass done into the following hairpin. But for Wayne Burke, stuck behind Jordan Ross for 1 more lap at least. And this is going to be a very interesting race to see who uses their tyres when and where.
Yeah, and I think, yeah, Kurt Stenberg, he's actually been on his tyres about as long as anybody else, but he's looking very racy behind his teammate in Luke Harvey right now. And Luke Harvey actually going a little bit defensive, just kind of blocking the line there coming up into turn 10. But it seems like, oh, Stenny's actually getting very loose, having trouble putting the power down and just clipping a bit of the curb there. But he's looking good to capitalize on any mistakes that these guys might make in the last couple of laps. And as we've seen with these races in the last few weeks, you can't say it's over till it's over. One of these guys could be about 50 milliliters over their fuel threshold right now, and it's just trying to do everything that they can to save and make it to the end and also not lose a position. So one of these guys could still run out of fuel as they're coming over the line. But Michael Talyancic hasn't run away with this as much as I thought he would. In fact, Jordan Ross has actually done a pretty good job in catching up that little margin that Michael had pulled out while Jordan and Wayne were battling. And he could possibly be looking at making a move before this race is done as well. But it does look like these guys are a little out of reach of Sam Blacklock, although Sam's
pace is dropping
quite dramatically, and these guys are, yeah, I mean, they've only got 2 laps to go, but you can see even just visually that gap has come down really quite dramatically.
Well, we have to remember that Blacklock had a lightning quick pit stop for reference with when he did come into the pits. Of course, he was one of the first stoppers, a lot of laps left in the race, and it was 16.7 seconds, which was the same time as Talyancic behind him. But of course, Talyancic was some 3 laps later into the pits. So I think Blacklock could be conserving fuel just a little bit, or maybe really being to hurt with these tyres. Of course, the tyres wouldn't have been helped with contact with Luke Harvey, who was under a lot of pressure from the Apex Replicas driver Kurt Stenberg, and Harvey has no choice, no traction, and he's just going to let Stenberg go on by and try and hunt down Wayne Burke. who is not making as much of a challenge on Jordan Ross as I thought he would. So maybe running out of tyres for Wayne Burke. So he'll be looking to try and hold on to P number 6, which is a very good result for him. But Kurt Stenberg could be the guy to watch at the moment. Very quick pace, and he could potentially throw a curveball as Blacklock well and truly falling into the clutches of Taliancic.
Yeah, no, I reckon this could actually be back on now. We've got, what, 1 lap to go after this, and Michael is within...
Almost a second.
I think he's within a second now. Yeah, he's pretty much on the cusp of a second. And the lap time has consistently been at least 7/10. So if he has to conserve a little more fuel, Sam Blacklock, he could be in a real big bother here. But Jordan Ross is also looking like he's been using a lot of his tyres on that last lap and starting to struggle. And Michael's starting to pull away from him now. But look at that. Michael is now right on the back of, or not right on the back, but he's definitely brought that gap down. The gap over the line is pretty much bang on a second. So this could still turn for Michael Taliancic, and he could still walk away with a podium position if he's plays his cards right here.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think an issue for Sam Blacklock is not so much fuel. Of course, he does have a fuel issue by all means with very short fuel. But looking through Sunset Bend on that last lap, he was not getting that car turned in. I think he's maybe gone a bit too aggressive on setup or something, because he is really, really struggling with turn-in, which is the same issue we see with Luke Harvey, who is actually under a little bit of pressure from Brenton Hobson now, who's having a very strong end to the race. So Harvey really beginning to fall back. These TTR cars are not quite lasting in a 19-lap race distance, which is a big surprise, seeing as they've recently done endurance races around here. But Taliancic still doing everything he can to close in on Blacklock. Blacklock will have a little bit of traffic, which might hurt him. It depends on who or how the driver of Keith Wheeler will get out of the way. And so far, not particularly doing Blacklock any favours.
Oh, and 2 cars have come together. Luke Harvey and Brendan Hobson have come together, coming out of turn 10 as well. And that's Braden Bateman's going to have a look as well down there, and they're going to be very tight. And Braden's going to get a nice run coming out of here as well. And doesn't look like Michael Taliancic is going to be able to catch back up to those guys. But Luke Harvey manages to just hold on from Braden Bateman after coming together with Brenton Hobson. But Marlon McMullen will round Sunset Bend for the final time. He'll get the power down, and with a little bit of a wiggle as he comes across, he will be your winner for the official iRacing V8 Supercar Series here at Sebring, with Ryan O'Sullivan equally as sideways coming over the line, and Blacklock and Taliancic, yeah, just coming over the line.
If Blacklock coughs, which he is!
He is! Oh, they got it together!
They're in the wall!
Oh, who got it?
That's a massive crash!
Blacklock got it!
He got it
my
somehow!
God!
How?
Oh, and this...
What has happened?
The line! Well,
what is this?
we said it's not over until it's absolutely over. And that is, wow. I have not seen a finish to a race like that in a very long time. We're going to have to get a Cut Price Racing replay of that for you, because...
more than one.
Yeah, I think we're going to need more than one, because that was absolutely insane.
Whoa.
Mike.
Blacklock, for some reason, tried to defend that spot, and I know he wanted the podium badly, but that's not the way to do it, and he's very much taken Taliancic out. So, Sam, that one is completely on you. I get what you're trying to do, but that's just not how it happens.
Yeah.
But another thing we have to look for into that final few corners was the battle with Luke Harvey, who was in a massive, massive pack into the final corner. He went for a big dive on the driver of Brenton Hobson and pretty much got it, but it was almost 3 wide on the power.
Yeah, it was 3 wide.
And what a finish that was. They came across the line and just joined to the car park.
Yeah, and Braden Bateman actually just got Luke Harvey by 22 thousandths of a second there. So that was good to see. And then Braden went careering into one of the cars that I think it was Michael Taliancic as well. But wow, I'm a little lost for words after that. That was crazy. But well done to Marlon McMullen. He's been very He's been runner-up in this series. He's been doing massive work to try and get himself at the very front of one of these races for a long time. And while he's succeeded a handful of times, tonight is another one of those occasions. And with him sitting so well in the points for this series at the moment, that is going to be very advantageous for his hope of finally taking home a V8 Supercars official series title. And well done by Ryan O'Sullivan as well, who was able to have a bit of a lonely race but keep up the pace, and Sam Blacklock taking out the final podium position with that absolutely crazy defending as he coughed and spluttered over the line with Michael Taliancic. I'm actually surprised there's a 5 hundredths of a second gap of those guys coming off over the line. I'm surprised that that's not way tighter, because I really couldn't tell. I thought that they had gone over in a dead heat almost.
Yeah, it was an insane finish for those guys, but nonetheless, they do get across, and a lot of shame for Luke Harvey coming home in 10th. That was almost a brilliant race, but for him, he finishes just ahead of Jason Bentz, Leon Tander, Thomas Hintz, Craig Jones, and Brett Loxton for your top 15. And Jay McKnight, Mario Vlasic, Brian Borg, Steve Jansen, and Greg Sharp round out the top 20. David Kinmond, Wayne Taylor, Corey Preston in P number 23, Will Dodd, Zach Baker, who had such a strong start to the race, and Abrafati Putra, who was your last driver on the lead lap, with Keith Wheeler going down one lap, and Thomas McMillan, Christian Hinton, Emily Jones, and Cooper Webster being your retirements. But Zach, what was that race?
Well, I said that we were going to have a pretty exciting race, and these guys really did turn it up for us tonight. Yeah, I mean, it was pretty awkward, the whole race, really. I mean, there was a lot of argy-bargy. There were a few people careering into each other, people making mistakes, people braking really late and trying the bold moves. But the boldest move came last of all with Sam Blacklock and that defensive move over the line. But yeah, that was definitely a thriller of a race. And I'm surprised that those 19 laps went by so quickly, because it didn't feel like 19 laps to me.
Absolutely, that was jam-packed with action from start to finish. What a crazy race that was. One pit stop and it all got thrown up into the air at the end. And a bit of a controversial finish with that as well. But somehow we did manage to get 26 finishes in the end. But for us here on Monday, this is us done. But we'll be back very, very soon on Wednesday for the Oceanic Sprint Championship at the Monza circuit, which is going to be using the GP layer, and it's going to be fantastic to see those GT3 cars going around there in what should be another huge field.
Yeah, you might even catch me there if you're lucky. We'll see. But well, yeah, I mean, yeah, oh dear, who knows? But with the Monza race coming up for the what do they call it now? The Virtual Racing School Blancpain. Oh no, whoops. That's definitely not.
You've merged names there.
Yeah, I've merged names there. The VRS GT World Championship coming up. There might be some extra entrants who are looking to get a little bit of practice in before the big race. So definitely everyone should be checking out that race. And I'll also just apologize. I've been sick tonight. So if I've passed on something to anyone, you can send your boss's phone calls to me.
It's all right, because on Sunday we also have another broadcast, and it's going to be a good one, because it's of course the V8 Supercars Online Premier Series at Snetterton, which is going to be a very interesting race. A brand new circuit for the Scops calendar, of course, only got introduced at the end of last year, so it's a brand new territory for every single driver. So will it throw up any surprises? Who knows? But from us here at V8 Online for tonight, thanks for watching, and we'll catch you next time.